Hello AP Psychology scholars. Today's Flip It video is for Mod 19. We're going to learn about Gestalt psychology. Today we'll find out what Gestalt psychology is, we'll learn why it was historically significant in the history of psychology, and we'll learn how it helps us understand how we perceive form. Gestalt, quite simply, is an organized whole, an entirety, a completeness. Gestalt psychologists argued, among other things, that the whole, or the gestalt, is different from the sum of its parts. This is the most famous saying from Gestalt psychology. When I was in high school, my chemistry teacher had us do an exercise to calculate the worth of a human being. He gave us a periodic table, told us to research how many of the elements would be in a typical 150-pound person, and then calculate how much it would cost to buy those elements. We'd have to figure out the cost of the calcium, for example, the cost of the iron. I don't really remember exactly what we came up with, but I know it was less than $20. His point was that a human being is worth more than the cost of the elements that make him up. This is Gestalt psychology. This is historically significant because it represents a battle with another of the early perspectives in psychology. The structuralists in the late 1800s were trying to figure out the elemental components of the mind. The Gestalt psychologists believed that you lost something important, if you only considered the pieces, and therefore missed the whole, the Gestalt. This is called a Necker cube. It's one of my favorite illustrations in psychology. Most people, when they look at this, see a cube made of white bars in front of a field with blue polka dots on it. You see the blue circles, the white bars, and the cube. However, none of those things are really on this slide. The only thing that's there are blue circle segments. However, we perceive the blue segments as a gestalt, as a whole circle, and we use those segments to perceive the bars that make up the cube. The cube exists only in your mind. It's a gestalt. Figure ground is another topic covered by the Gestalt psychologists. The figure is the thing that stands out in any visual field. Everything else is ground. This is an interesting diagram because it's a reversible figure ground. If you make black be the figure, then you're looking at a group of firefighters walking from right to left. However, if you make the white arrows be the figure, then you're looking at alternating arrows, and the black becomes the ground. Gestalt psychologists also worked on grouping principles. Here's one of the grouping principles. It's called proximity. People who look at this diagram see 3 sets of 2 lines. They don't see 6 individual lines. Proximate means close. We tend to group things that are close together. Just like an approximation in mathematics means that you try to come close. This is one of several grouping principles. Others include continuity and closure, which you can read about in your textbook. Here are some summary questions. By now you should understand what a gestalt is. You should know why it's important to consider the gestalt as well as individual parts. And you should know how figure-ground relationships help us make sense of the world. See you next time for our next Flip It.